I recently came across this listing for this Toastmaster 4435 on eBay. No, this is not my fan, but it made me think of a childhood memory. And I apologize as I'm making a video of a screen and I'm using an older monitor here. But I wanted to, and I think I touched on some of this story a while back in one of the various videos if you follow the channel. I think I was talking about the Eastern Electric branded fan that I had from the late 80s. And I know, I know I shared some of that story before, and this actually proves my memory as a 10-year-old, or maybe I was even 9 years old, 9 or 10 years old. I remember. So, for those of you who are into the hobby and want to hear the story, continue to listen for sure. So, as like any normal 9 or 10-year-old, I saved up some money to buy a box fan. And what I did was there was a store, hardware store that no longer exists. I think it's a mattress store now. Hardware store called Rockaway Sales. And it was a really good hardware store, pretty big. Not like your little tiny mom and pop, but it was pretty big. For those of you who are familiar with the chain Aubuchon, think of like an independent hardware store, like about that size. And my parents used to go in there quite often because the town I lived in, even the surrounding towns, there was no Home Depot, there was no Lowe's. The closest thing we had, and this will really test people, would probably be 20 minutes away, 25 minutes away, which is not that far in my mind. There's a store called Channel, which later turned into Rickles, and then later just completely went out of business. Fast forward to the probably 2010s or somewhere in there, even before then, probably more like 2000s. Now in that same area, there is a Lowe's and a Home Depot within, a mile of one another. So going back to the 80s, things were simpler back then. So I was saving money, and I noticed when my parents would take me into this hardware store, my mom, she was off during summers because she was a teacher, and it was definitely in the summer. She would run in there, we need a hose, or we need this. Because at that point in time, we had recently moved into that house, and it was a significant move and a large home. And I was using a McGraw-Edison comfort fan. Now, if you look on that box in the video, it does say comfort fan. But what I was using was the translucent bladed one from the early 80s, late 70s. And if you follow the channel, you know that that's like my childhood fan, and the stories are on those videos. So I wanted to buy another fan, and my parents were like, what are you going to use that for? And I had a pretty large bedroom, so the Edison was in the window, and I thought, I want to put a fan in the doorway so it can pull the air, because I would have my Edison in the window and exhaust. So I want to put a fan in the doorway for the really hot days to help pull the air through. It was a 9 and 10-year-old or 9-year-old's rationalization. I think I was 10, because if it was summer of 88, I would have been 10. So call it 10 years old. So my mom was like, I can't believe you're really going to spend your money on a fan. And it was probably about $20 that I had to save up or something in there. Now you can buy fans pretty much for that price range today, maybe a little bit more. So it's interesting. So what I recall about this hardware store, and you don't see this today, is now I'm sure they had other fans like pedestal fans and oscillating fans and whatnot. Tower fans were not a thing yet. And what I recall is being in there, and they had two different types of box fans, like two different manufactured box fans, and you don't see that like that you don't see that today. Like it's usually Lasco or it's Utilitech or whatever that one is, Speed Zone or Speedway, whatever that fan is. Um, so I wanted the Toastmaster. Now take a look at the box on that Toastmaster. And now whoever posted this has the picture of the back of the fan. But one would think, and I could switch the pictures, and these are grainy pictures they have posted there. So the blades match the banana blades, which I like, and I know people argue that they're cheap and they don't perform well. I have childhood memories of this because I have also have a childhood memory of a thin and light, and that's where I'm going with this. So the grill, now pay attention to the grill, typical plastic slats. Now go here, back to the box. I can zoom in on that. Can I? Yeah. So go back to the box. Now look at the box, and it's like moving as I'm moving. Look at the grill that is depicted on the box. It looks different, and you can see an example of how it actually looks there. It looks like straight slats or bars all the way across. If you are familiar with the Edison or / Toastmaster thin and light fans, they had the metal grills on the front and the back. Not all of them, because then, and I still would love someone to tell me the difference, because it seemed like the same years of production they had a thin and light with metal grills on both sides, or a metal grill in the rear and a plastic in the front. I own multiple variants, but I own both of those types of thin and lights. So knowing that my parents, in addition to the McGraw, excuse me, McGraw-Edison comfort fan, it's wintertime and it's very dry out, and that's why I keep coughing or clearing my throat. So in addition to the comfort fans, my parents had a thin and light, and basically they didn't put the feet on it. I think someone gave it to them, and it would keep falling over, and I think it eventually like broke or something, and they threw it out. And I was so upset because at that point in time I was like 4 years old, and I wanted them to keep it so I could try to fix it as a 4 or 5 year old. So my mind, now think about this, everything's relevant to its time. In 1988, there was no internet. There was no way of kind of connecting with other fan collectors. I thought in my mind I was the only person who were in fans. Like I thought something was wrong with me, although something is wrong with me probably, because we are a unique bunch. So I had no way of knowing that model had been long discontinued, but they were still using this image on the box for now what would become the Toastmaster. And really the Toastmaster fan, the actual fan here, this is really what the Edison comfort fan evolved into. And it ultimately ended up with the banana blades from the thin and light. Slightly, it still had a wider cabinet, although the metal became pretty flimsy. I own this fan, not this one in the picture, but one just like it, which I rescued from trash like 15 years ago. And then I have the gray one, and then I have one that's like an in-between one that has a different, like a brown cabinet. So when I was a young boy, I thought, oh man, they still sell these fans. I was 10 years old. I was like, I want this fan. At the time, I think I had $20 on me, and it was like $23. But also for sale for less money was an Eastern Electric box fan, late 80s, so 88. So it was still using the plastic motor, but the picture on the box, that box still had, like I thought I was getting like a mid 80s Lasco or Eastern Electric. So my mom wouldn't give me the extra couple dollars to get what I wanted. So I got the Eastern, right? And it had the image on the box, very 80s with the badge like across the front of the grill and whatnot. When I pull it out of the box, there's no badge across the front of the grill. There's no badge at all on it, and there's just a little label around the knob that says Eastern Electric. And the irony is, again, everything's like relevant to its time. At that point in time, I was used to these big behemoths from the 80s, big Lascos, Sears, Lakewoods, Edisons. So I pull out this thinner cabinet, which seems wide compared to today's standards. And I thought, what a cheap piece of junk I just got. I wish I got the Toastmaster. So ultimately, I really liked that fan. I don't have that fan today. Never oiled it. It lasted 5 years, and then I tried to take it apart and didn't know. I didn't know that you couldn't use WD-40. I didn't know where to oil. I didn't know how to put it back. So that fan was long gone. And I do have an Eastern Electric that's a couple years newer, probably like 90 or 91, that has the gray cabinet, which has appeared in videos on this channel. Ultimately, but mine has the Marco motor, not the plastic motor that was a carryover from the earlier 80s. So this is my long 11-minute story to this point, but it's funny how when you're perusing eBay or see something, it confirms a memory or confirms something that you remember from long ago. And whoever is posting this with the original box, that is pretty cool. Now, if I didn't have one of these fans already, I'd be tempted to go for it just so I could have the box and just kind of say, I remember this from 1988 at Rockaway Sales. So that's my story. And if anyone has similar stories, things that kind of jog their memory, obviously it doesn't need to be Toastmaster or Edison related, but just kind of silly little things like this that somehow in all the craziness of the world sticks with you in your memory banks of your brain. I would love to hear it. So thanks for watching. And if you're into fans, we got a lot of fans on this channel. See you next time.